I failed, James Carter whispers, pained, as he looks at Ethan, his 7-year-old son, sitting motionless in a wheelchair by the Willamette River. Once a tech millionaire in Portland, James has tried everything: top doctors, expensive therapies to help his autistic and mute son speak. But Ethan only stares at the water, silent as stone. Loneliness strangles James's heart. Then Sarah, an ordinary housekeeper, arrives with perceptive eyes. She sees what no one else does. Ethan stirs slightly when the river's gentle lapping echoes. Could a simple sound unlock the door to the boy's soul? The Willamette River glimmers under the dawn, reflecting the first rays of sunlight through the oak windows of the riverside house. James Carter, 45, stands silently on the balcony. His hands grip the cold railing tightly. The morning breeze carries cool mist, but it cannot soothe the ache in his chest. Below, the water's gentle flow hums like a wordless song. But to James, it's only a reminder. His son Ethan's silence is louder than the river itself. James was once a star in Portland's tech world. He built a software company from a small garage, took it public, and became a millionaire by 35. Forbes once called him the man shaping the future. But that's the past. Now, James lives reclusively in a modern wooden house, where everything is perfect, from the granite fireplace to the abstract paintings on the walls, but lacks the warmth of a true family. His wife, Emily, died in a car accident 4 years ago, leaving him and Ethan, a 7-year-old boy with autism and partial paralysis since birth. Each morning, James begins with the same ritual. He enters Ethan's room, where soft light filters through blue curtains. The boy sits in his wheelchair. His large brown eyes gaze into the void, as if the world outside is a hazy painting. James gently lifts Ethan from bed, checks the wheelchair straps, and whispers, "Today will be a good day, son." He doesn't expect a reply, for Ethan has never spoken. But he speaks anyway, as if words could pierce the invisible wall between them. The house, though grand, is always quiet. James's footsteps echo on the wooden floor. He prepares breakfast himself, toast with peanut butter, a scent Ethan once liked as a baby. They sit across from each other at the long table, but Ethan's eyes stay fixed on the window, where the river sparkles. James talks about the weather, the migrating birds he saw this morning, or even a funny story about burning the kitchen while trying to bake. Ethan doesn't laugh, doesn't look, only sips lightly. That silence is like a slow, sharp knife, cutting into James's heart. James was once a man in control. In boardrooms, he commanded million-dollar deals with confidence and logic. But with Ethan, he's powerless. He's spent millions seeking answers. Doctors from Seattle, therapists from San Francisco, and the most advanced medical equipment were brought to the house. They tried speech therapy, music therapy, even eye contact communication. But Ethan remains a mystery. Sometimes, his hand trembles slightly or his eyes blink quickly at an unfamiliar sound, but nothing more. James wonders, is my son really there? At night, when Ethan sleeps, James sits in his office. The computer screen's light illuminates his weary face. He reads scientific papers, watches autism conference videos, and notes new therapies. He even tried equine therapy at a farm near Portland, hoping the sound of hoofbeats would awaken something in Ethan. But the boy just sat, eyes distant. James doesn't give up, but each failure weighs like a stone on his shoulders. Once, while wheeling Ethan onto the balcony, James noticed him staring at the river longer than usual. Ethan's hand twitched, as if reaching for something invisible. James held his breath, hoping it was a sign. But then Ethan looked away, and silence returned. James forced a smile, ruffled his son's hair, and whispered, "I won't give up." He didn't know if he was speaking to Ethan or himself. The riverside house, though picturesque, is a lonely place. James once thought money could buy anything from technology to hope. But now, he realizes the one thing he wants: Ethan's voice cannot be bought. He looks at the river, where sunlight dances on the water, and wonders, is there something out there that can reach my son? Alright, dear audience, if you're watching and find this story compelling, please comment the number 1 or write "I'm still here" to keep listening. Rain patters on the wooden house's roof, creating glistening streaks that slide down the large windows overlooking the Willamette. James Carter sits in the living room. The fireplace's glow dances on his tired face. Before him, a tablet displays dense medical documents. Words like severe autism, and motor disability hit him like hammer blows. Nearby, Ethan sits in his wheelchair. His small hands are still, his eyes fixed on the rain outside. James looks at his son. His heart tightens. He's done everything, but why isn't it enough? James was once a master problem solver. At 30, he turned a software idea into $1 million company, overcoming obstacles with sharp logic and persistence. But with Ethan, every formula fails. The 7-year-old, autistic and partially paralyzed since birth, doesn't speak, laugh, or connect. James has spent millions seeking answers. He flew to Seattle, met top neurologists. He brought in specialists from San Francisco with cutting-edge brain scanning equipment. They promised speech therapy, music therapy, even eye contact communication. But each session ended with Ethan silent, his gaze distant like the river outside. One morning, James wheels Ethan into a custom-designed room, a colorful space with toys, interactive boards, and speakers playing soothing music. A young therapist, with a bright smile, tries placing a wooden block before Ethan. "Come on, Ethan, touch the block," she says, her voice full of energy. Ethan doesn't move. She plays a cheerful children's song. James, behind the glass, clenches his fists, hoping for a small reaction. But Ethan only blinks. His hand trembles slightly. Then he turns away. The therapist forces a smile, jotting notes. James feels a chill run down his spine. Another failure. He keeps searching. A week later, James takes Ethan to a farm outside Portland, where equine therapy is hailed as miraculous. Hoofbeats echo on dry ground. The scent of grass lingers. James lifts Ethan onto the saddle, holding him tightly. The instructor says the horse's movement can stimulate senses. But Ethan just sits, head bowed, unresponsive. James forces a smile, patting his son. "Having fun?" No reply. On the drive home, James drives in silence, hearing only the rain tapping the windshield. At night, when Ethan sleeps, James sits in his office. The computer's blue light bathes his face. He scans scientific articles, watches autism conference videos, notes new therapies. He tried an eye-tracking device, a costly machine promising to let Ethan speak through his gaze. The technician set it up, guiding James on its use. But when the laser light hit Ethan's eyes, the boy turned away, whimpering as if uncomfortable. James shut it off, held his head, feeling like he's chasing a shadow. He can't bear the silence. Each night, James sits by Ethan's bed, listening to the steady breathing through the monitor. He tells him about old days, when he and Emily, Ethan's mother, walked hand in hand by the Willamette under the sunset. "Your mom loved this river," he says. His voice chokes. "Do you think it's beautiful?" Ethan doesn't answer, but James keeps talking, as if words could awaken something in him. He fears the day he's gone who will care for Ethan, who will understand him. James doesn't give up, but each failure cuts deeper. He remembers running his company, when every problem had a solution. But Ethan isn't a project. He's his son, and his silence is the greatest mystery James has ever faced. One afternoon, when the rain stops, James wheels Ethan onto the balcony. The river sparkles under the sun, its gentle lapping echoes. Ethan tilts his head slightly, his hand trembling. James holds his breath, hoping it's a sign, but then Ethan falls silent again. A cool breeze sweeps through the Willamette, sending vibrant red maple leaves drifting onto the grass before the wooden house. Sarah Miller, 29, steps off an old bus, carrying a worn suitcase. She pauses, admiring the modern house with its large windows reflecting the river's shimmer. A strange feeling envelops her, as if she stepped into a beautiful but chillingly silent painting. Sarah isn't here for glamour. She wants a fresh start, after months drowning in the pain of losing her bookstore job and memories of her unfinished dreams as a painter. Inside, James Carter greets her with a polite but cold nod. He wears a dark blue shirt, his hair flecked with gray, his eyes tired but sharp. "You'll clean, cook, and assist when needed," he says. His voice is flat, like reading a contract. Then he tells her about Ethan, his 7-year-old son with autism and partial paralysis. "He doesn't speak, doesn't respond much, don't expect anything." Sarah nods, asking no questions. She's used to silence not just from others, but from her own heart after her losses. The vast house, with its polished wooden floors and granite fireplace, has a perfect beauty but lacks life. Sarah notices traces of a child, a compact wheelchair, a few colorful toys sitting alone on a shelf, and an untouched sketch pad. When she first meets Ethan, he's in his wheelchair by the large window. His gaze is fixed on the Willamette. His tousled brown hair stirs in the breeze from a cracked window. Sarah says nothing. She offers a slight smile, begins dusting a nearby bookshelf, and hums an old folk tune. Sarah isn't like the previous staff. She doesn't force smiles or try to make Ethan notice her. She works slowly, avoiding loud noises. While washing dishes, she lets the water run gently, noticing Ethan tilts his head when its soft trickle sounds. She doesn't comment, just notes it. One afternoon, while cleaning a window, she sees Ethan blink faster as sunlight reflects off the river onto the glass. She pauses, watching him from afar. There's something in his eyes, not emptiness, but a search. James, from his office, notices Sarah's approach. She doesn't ask much, doesn't try to impress. She's simply there, part of the house, not disrupting the silence James is used to. One day, while Sarah folds towels in the living room, she places a small glass of water near Ethan. The light shines through, casting a rainbow on the table. Ethan's fingers twitch, his eyes follow the colors. James, entering the room, freezes. He's never seen anyone work with Ethan without pushing or giving up. Sarah just smiles, continues her task, as if the moment is nothing special. Sarah carries her own story. She once dreamed of being a painter, capturing seas and rivers, but life forced her to set that dream aside. Losing her bookstore job left her in a void, but working for James is an escape. She doesn't seek recognition or healing for her own pain. She just wants to do something meaningful, however small. While cleaning Ethan's room, she finds an old painting, perhaps Emily's, his mother of a blue river. Sarah touches it, feeling a vague connection. James starts talking to Sarah, at first just brief questions about work. She answers directly, no fluff. Once, she mentions the bookstore, the days she read to children. She doesn't dwell on her pain, but James senses her sincerity. He's surprised by her calm, something he's long lost. Sarah doesn't try to change Ethan or the house. She's just there, quietly, but her presence is like a fresh breeze through the silent halls. One evening, Sarah sits on a chair near Ethan, doing nothing but watching the river. Ethan doesn't look at her, but he doesn't turn away either. James, from a distance, sees this and feels a tiny spark of hope. Perhaps the house's silence is shifting, even just a little. Dear audience, please pause a moment to subscribe to the channel before continuing with the main story, but only if you truly connect with what I'm sharing here. And leave a comment below to let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. It's exciting to see people from all over joining us. A seagull swoops over the Willamette, creating small ripples that shimmer in the morning sunday. Sarah Miller stands by the kitchen window, holding a rag, but her eyes stay on Ethan. The 7-year-old sits in his wheelchair. His large brown eyes are fixed on the river, where light dances on the water. Sarah notices something different, a slight head tilt, almost imperceptible, when the sink's trickle echoes. She stops wiping, lets the water run slower, and watches. Ethan's fingers twitch, as if drawing invisible circles. Sarah's heart races. Something is happening. Sarah doesn't rush. She learned at the bookstore that patience is the key to understanding a soul. She starts watching Ethan closely, not through medical reports or expert advice, but through the small moments in this wooden house. Each time she turns on the faucet, Ethan tilts his head. When it rains and she cracks a window, he looks outside longer, his eyes brighter. One afternoon, while cleaning the living room, she accidentally spills a glass of water on the table. The dripping sound makes Ethan blink rapidly. His hand trembles slightly. Sarah smiles, says nothing, but an idea forms in her mind. The next day, Sarah tries something new. She wheels Ethan to the riverbank behind the house, where lush grass leads to a small wooden dock. The Willamette flows gently, its soft lapping like a wordless song. Sarah stops the wheelchair under a maple tree, letting Ethan watch the water. She doesn't force him to look, doesn't ask anything, just sits beside him, letting the breeze carry cool mist to them both. Ethan sits up straighter, a rare sight. His fingers begin to move, tracing small curves in the air, as if mimicking the river. Sarah's heart pounds, but she stays calm, humming an old Oregon folk tune she once heard. James Carter, from the balcony, watches this scene. He's just finished a work call, his voice still carrying the firmness of a tech millionaire. But seeing Sarah and Ethan, he pauses. Sarah isn't like the therapists before, who always tried to fix Ethan with complex methods. She's just there, present, asking nothing. James notices Ethan doesn't turn away as he usually does with strangers nearby. The boy seems more at ease, his shoulders relaxed, his gaze focused on the water. James grips the railing. A small spark of hope flickers in his chest. Sarah continues her experiment, but gently, like the breeze skimming the river. One day, she brings a small bowl of water to the riverbank, placing it on the wooden table near Ethan. She stirs the water with her finger, creating soft ripples. Ethan leans forward, a small but clear movement. His eyes brighten, following the ripples in the bowl. Sarah says nothing, just smiles and keeps stirring. She realizes Ethan isn't just reacting to the sound, he's drawn to it, as if it's a language only he understands. James steps to the riverbank, curious but careful not to disrupt the moment. He stands a few meters away, hands in pockets, pretending to watch birds fly by. But his eyes stay on Ethan. He sees the boy blink faster, his fingers moving with the rhythm of the ripples. Sarah turns, catching James's gaze. She nods slightly, as if to say, "I see it too." James doesn't respond, but he feels the shift. The wooden house, once silent like a museum, suddenly feels more alive, even just a little. Sarah doesn't rush to conclusions. She knows these small signs might be coincidence, but deep down, she feels Ethan isn't as closed off as others think. She recalls days at the bookstore, when a silent child smiled because of the right story. Perhaps Ethan is waiting for a story, one without words. She looks at the river, its sunlit surface like a living painting, and wonders if she can help Ethan tell his own. A golden ray of sunlight pierces the maple leaves, shining on the Willamette's surface, creating shimmering patches like a living painting. Sarah Miller wheels Ethan to the small dock behind the house, where the water's gentle lapping blends with chirping birds. She places a small sketch pad and a box of colored pencils on the wooden table, saying nothing, just smiling at Ethan. The 7-year-old, with deep brown eyes, gazes at the river as if listening to a secret story. Sarah sees his eyes aren't empty, they hold something profound, waiting to be freed. Sarah doesn't push Ethan. She learned at the bookstore that sometimes, freedom is the best way to awaken a soul. She just places a blue crayon in Ethan's hand, letting him feel its light weight. His hand trembles but doesn't let go. Sarah sits beside him, pretending to watch the river, but her eyes follow Ethan's every move. He leans forward, slowly drawing a curved line on the paper. The blue stroke, wavy, mirrors the Willamette outside. Sarah holds her breath. Her heart pounds. This isn't random, Ethan is saying something. James Carter stands on the balcony, holding a cold coffee. He just finished a work email, but his mind isn't there. From afar, he sees Sarah and Ethan by the river, sunlight glinting on the small sketchpad. He squints, curious. Sarah isn't like the therapists before, who guided Ethan with rigid instructions. She just lets him be, as if knowing he needs space to breathe. James steps to the dock, keeping his footsteps light to avoid interrupting. As he nears, he sees Ethan's drawing a blue river, curving, with clumsy but rhythmic lines. James's throat tightens. He's never seen Ethan do anything but sit still or blink. This drawing, though simple, is a miracle. He kneels beside his son, his voice trembles. "Did you draw this, Ethan?" The boy doesn't answer, but his eyes shine brighter, as if saying, "Look, Dad." Sarah, sitting nearby, smiles gently. "He likes the river," she says. Her voice is soft as the breeze. James nods, unable to look away from the drawing. He sees in it not just colors but a piece of Ethan, the piece he's sought for years. Sarah keeps letting Ethan draw. She brings more paper, more crayons, and sets them near him each day by the river. Ethan doesn't draw quickly, but each stroke means something. Some days, he draws blue circles, like ripples. Others, he adds a yellow patch, like sunlight. Sarah doesn't guide, just watches, sometimes humming a folk song to keep the space calm. She realizes Ethan isn't just drawing, he's communicating, using colors to say what words can't. James starts spending more time by the river. He brings a chair, sits near Ethan, reads books, or tells stories of his childhood, when he and Ethan's mother went fishing on the Willamette. He doesn't expect replies, but he sees Ethan listening, through a tilted head or a blink. Once, when Ethan draws a red line, James laughs. "Is that a maple leaf? Looks like Portland in autumn." Sarah laughs too, and the air feels lighter, as if the wooden house's heavy silence is lifting. Sarah feels a special bond with Ethan. She remembers her painting days, when colors were her escape from sadness. She looks at Ethan's drawings and sees a story not just of the river, but of the boy himself. She doesn't push him further. She knows each stroke is a step forward, small but certain. James, from a distance, watches Sarah and Ethan, feeling a hope he thought was lost. The riverside house, once a prison of loneliness, now seems to come alive. All right, dear audience, if you're watching and find this story compelling, please comment the number 1, or write, "I'm still here to keep listening." The sun tilts, bathing the Willamette River in a blazing orange, as if the entire river is aflame. Sarah Miller wheels Ethan to the familiar wooden dock. The gentle lapping of water blends with the rustle of maple leaves. She places a small bowl of water on the table. Sunlight shines through, casting rainbow streaks on the wood. Ethan, 7 years old, leans forward. His brown eyes brighten as his fingers touch the bowl's edge. Sarah smiles, gently stirring the water, letting its soft trickling sound like a song. Then, like a lightning bolt in a clear sky, Ethan speaks. Water. His voice is small, hoarse, but clear. Sarah stops breathing. Her hand trembles. That moment feels like a miracle. Sarah looks at Ethan, hardly believing her ears. The boy still gazes at the bowl. His eyes are focused, as if the word was the most natural thing. Sarah doesn't rush, doesn't cheer. She knows moments like this are fragile as glass. She only whispers, her voice soft as the breeze. "That's right, Ethan. Water." She stirs the bowl again, letting the sound continue, hoping to keep the boy in that magical moment. Ethan blinks. His fingers twitch, as if drawing ripples on an imaginary page. James Carter stands a few meters away, stepping out from the wooden house with a coffee mug in hand. He meant to ask Sarah about dinner, but Ethan's voice stops him cold. The mug falls to the grass, shattering, but James doesn't notice. He runs over, kneels by Ethan's wheelchair. His voice trembles. What did you say?" Ethan looks at his father. His eyes are bright but calm, and he repeats, "Water." The word is like a sweet knife, cutting through the wall of silence James has faced for 4 years. Tears spill. He hugs the wheelchair, afraid to touch too hard, fearing he'll break this dream. Sarah sits still, letting the moment belong to James and Ethan. She recalls days at the bookstore, when a silent child suddenly read a word aloud from a story. But with Ethan, water isn't just a sound, it's a door opening to a world she and James have sought. She looks at the Willamette. The sunset's orange glow reflects like a reminder. The river woke Ethan. Sarah says nothing, just keeps stirring the water, maintaining a safe space for Ethan to feel free. James wipes his tears, trying to regain composure. He looks at Sarah. His eyes are filled with gratitude and astonishment. "How did you do it?" he asks. His voice chokes. Sarah shakes her head lightly, smiling. "I didn't do anything. It was Ethan." James nods, understanding that Sarah doesn't control or force. She listens, observes, and lets Ethan find his way. He turns back to his son, seeing him still watching the bowl. His fingers move as if drawing. James feels a connection he's longed for not just with Ethan, but with the hope he'd lost. Sarah continues her work, but she starts bringing simple items to the river. A bowl of water, a small wind chime, anything that makes gentle sounds. She realizes Ethan doesn't just respond to water's sound, but to its rhythm, like a song he understands in his own way. She doesn't push him to speak more, doesn't force him to repeat. She knows each word, each gesture, is a fragile step. James, for the first time in years, joins in more. He brings a chair to the river, sits near Ethan, and talks of his childhood when the Willamette was where he flew kites with his father. The wooden house, once silent as a museum, now carries a new breath. Ethan's voice, though just one word, changes everything. James feels his heart lighten, as if the river has washed away some of his pain. Sarah, with her quiet patience, becomes indispensable to this journey. She looks at Ethan, sees his eyes grow brighter each day, and wonders if the river is the only key, or if something greater awaits. An early breeze carries red maple leaves, skimming the Willamette's surface, creating small, shimmering swirls under the dawn. Sarah Miller wheels Ethan to the familiar dock. The water's gentle lapping is like a wordless melody. She places a sketch pad and colored pencils beside him. But today, she brings a small speaker, playing soft wave sounds. Ethan, 7 years old, sits up straighter. His brown eyes brighten at the sound. Then, unexpectedly, he makes a small sound, not a word, but a faint laugh, like wind chimes tinkling in the breeze. Sarah smiles. Her heart races. The riverbank has become Ethan's world's center. Each morning he points to the window. His eyes command, "Take me to the river." Sarah understands, wheeling him to the dock, where cool air mixes with the scent of grass and water. She realizes Ethan doesn't just react to the water's sound, he lives in it, as if the Willamette is part of him. Sarah brings more toys, yellow rubber ducks, a small paper boat, and a picture book about rivers. Ethan touches them. His fingers tremble, sometimes drawing blue, curving lines on paper, as if recreating the river. James Carter, from the balcony, watches this with a new feeling. He once thought the wooden house was a prison of pain, but now, the riverbank is changing everything. He steps down, carrying a folding chair, and sits near Ethan and Sarah. He's no longer the cold millionaire running a company remotely. He's a father, yearning to understand his son. "What are you drawing today?" he asks. His voice is gentle. Ethan doesn't reply, but he tilts his head. His eyes brighten when James points to a rubber duck floating on the water. James laughs. "That duck looks like it's racing." Sarah laughs too, and the air feels light, like an autumn day in Portland. Sarah keeps experimenting. She brings a small wind chime, hanging it on a maple branch near the dock. Its tinkling blends with the water, creating a gentle melody. Ethan starts making sounds, not words, but hums, as if singing to the river's rhythm. Sarah doesn't push him to speak more, just observes, noting each small reaction in her mind. She realizes Ethan needs a safe space to be himself. She places an old painting by Emily, a blue river near Ethan. He touches it, tracing its lines as if talking to his mother. James joins in more. He brings books to the river, reading aloud stories of adventures on the Mississippi or old Oregon ships. He doesn't expect replies, but he sees Ethan listening, through blinks or tilted heads. One day, when Sarah floats a paper boat, Ethan makes a sound. Boat. James and Sarah lock eyes. There's shine. The word is small, but it's another step. James feels his heart warm, as if the river has washed away some of his loneliness. The wooden house begins to change. Ethan's rare laughs ring like optimistic notes. Sarah hangs his drawings on the living room walls, turning the silent space into a vibrant gallery. James looks at the blue and yellow strokes, feeling his son's presence, not just through words but colors. He talks to Sarah more, not just about Ethan but about his youth, when he and Emily flew kites by the Willamette. Sarah listens, sharing stories of the bookstore, where she saw children find joy in small things. The riverbank isn't just where Ethan grows, it's where all three find each other. Sarah, with her quiet patience, becomes the bridge between James and Ethan. James, who once thought money was the answer, now sees love and presence are what Ethan needs. Ethan, still in his own world, is slowly opening up, stroke by stroke, sound by sound. The Willamette, with its ceaseless flow, seems to tell a greater story, and all three are part of it. A yellow rubber duck drifts lazily on the Willamette, bobbing with small ripples under the bright noon sunday. Sarah Miller sits on the dock beside Ethan's wheelchair, placing a blank sheet of paper and a box of colored pencils before him. The water's gentle lapping blends with the wind chimes' tinkle, forming a soft symphony. Ethan, 7 years old, picks up a yellow crayon, drawing large circles on the paper, as if recreating the sun above. Then, unexpectedly, he points to the drawing and says, "Sunday." His voice is small but clear, like a gem sparkling in the river. Sarah smiles. Her heart pounds, but she keeps her voice calm. "That's right, Ethan. Sunday." That moment is like a fresh breeze sweeping the riverbank. Sarah looks at Ethan's drawing vivid yellow circles mixed with blue river lines and realizes he's not just drawing, he's telling a story. She doesn't push him to speak more, just gently places a red crayon beside him, letting him continue freely. Ethan touches it, drawing a curved red line, like a maple leaf falling on the water. Sarah notes in her mind. Each word, each stroke, is a door to Ethan's world. She looks at the Willamette, sunlight dances on its surface, and she feels the boy is communicating in his own way. James Carter steps out from the wooden house, holding a small notebook. He started tracking Ethan's progress, a new habit since water. He stands near the dock, hears sun, and freezes. He runs over, kneels by the wheelchair. His eyes shine. "What did you just say, Ethan?" The boy looks at his father, points to the drawing, and repeats, "Sunday." James laughs, a rare sound in this house, and looks at Sarah with gratitude. "Did you hear that?" "He said sun." Sarah nods, smiling. "He's telling a story." James feels his heart lighten, as if the river has washed away more pain. Sarah and James begin working in harmony. Sarah brings more toys and picture books to the river, choosing images of nature, trees, birds, suns. Ethan touches them, sometimes making small sounds like tree or bird. Sarah logs each word, each gesture, in a small notebook she shares with James. She realizes Ethan doesn't communicate like other children. He speaks through colors, through fingers moving with the water's rhythm, through eyes lighting up at the river. James, once used to dry tech reports, now meticulously notes his son's moments, as if programming a new future. One day, as Sarah floats a paper boat, Ethan points and says, "Boat." James, nearby, laughs. "You're the little captain of the Willamette." Sarah laughs too, and the air feels alive, like an autumn afternoon in Portland, with red maple leaves scattered on the grass. They start understanding Ethan's unique language not through long words, but through small pieces. A stroke, a word, a tilt of the head. Sarah hangs more of Ethan's drawings on the living room walls, turning the wooden house into a space of color and hope. James is no longer just a father on the sidelines. He brings a chair to the river daily, reading books or telling stories of camping by the river as a child. He sees Ethan listening, though not replying directly. Once, when James points to a seagull flying by, Ethan draws a white, curving line on paper. James looks at Sarah, amazed. He drew the bird. Sarah nods, smiling. He sees the world his own way. James feels a deepening connection, not just with Ethan but with Sarah, who brought light back to the house. The Willamette riverbank isn't just where Ethan grows, it's where all three find each other. Sarah, with her quiet patience, helps James see Ethan doesn't need fixing, but listening to. James, who thought money was the answer, now knows love and presence are key. Ethan, with new words and drawings, is slowly opening up, like the river to the sea. Are you still here, dear audience? Take a moment to relax, maybe grab a glass of water, and keep listening to this captivating story. Comment the number 1 if you find it compelling. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Light rain falls on the Willamette, creating small ripples that spread across the surface, like secrets rising from the depths. Sarah Miller descends to the wooden house's basement, holding a small flashlight. Its beam sweeps over dusty boxes. James asked her to find old documents for tax filings, but what she finds makes her heart pound. An old metal box, loosely locked, holds Ethan's medical records. Sarah opens it, and the handwritten note on the first page chills her. Strong sedative, high dose, Ethan Carter, age 3. Sarah sits on the cold floor. The flashlight trembles in her hand. She flips through pages, reading notes from a doctor named Daniel Hargrove. He prescribed heavy sedatives to Ethan as a toddler to control behavior related to autism. But a scribbled-out report reveals the dosage could cause neurological damage, contributing to Ethan's paralysis. Sarah is horrified to read more. Hargrove was investigated for drug misuse at another hospital, but was allowed to keep practicing. She feels like she's touched a dark secret, as if the river outside whispers a buried truth. Sarah brings the box to the living room, placing it on the wooden table, where the fireplace's light shines on Ethan's drawings, blue rivers and golden suns. She looks to the dock, where Ethan sits in his wheelchair, drawing a new picture under the drizzle. Sarah wonders, how could a doctor do this to a child? She knows she must tell James, but she fears his reaction, not just anger, but the pain of realizing he missed a horrific truth. James Carter enters, shirt sleeves rolled up, fresh from a work call. He sees Sarah's serious face and the box on the table. "What did you find?" he asks. His voice is light but curious. Sarah takes a deep breath, sliding the box toward him. "You need to read this," she says. Her voice trembles. James sits, flips through the files, and his face pales. When he reads the sedative notes, he grips the paper, as if to tear it apart. "What did they do to my son?" he whispers. His voice chokes with pain and guilt. Sarah recounts what she read, from the dangerous dosage to the covered-up investigation. James stands pacing the room, hands clutching his head. "I trusted them," he says. His voice breaks. "I paid them, and they hurt Ethan." Sarah places a hand on his shoulder, gentle but firm. "It's not your fault, James. You didn't know, but we know now." She looks out at Ethan, still drawing by the river, untouched by the storm rising in his father's heart. Sarah suggests, "We need to dig deeper. Maybe Ethan wasn't the only one." James nods. His eyes shift from pain to resolve. He was once a man who controlled everything with logic and money, but now he feels a different fire justice. He and Sarah sit, combing through each page for clues. They find a note about another Portland family who saw Hargrove. Sarah jots down their name and address, suggesting they verify it. James looks at her, eyes full of gratitude. "You're not just helping Ethan, you're helping me." Sarah smiles faintly, but a question haunts her. How far will this truth take them? The Willamette keeps flowing, relentless, as if urging them to face the past. Ethan, outside, draws a gray line, like the rain clouds above. Sarah and James know their journey isn't just about helping Ethan speak or draw, it's about righting the wrongs that harmed him. The wooden house, once a refuge for pain, now becomes the center of a new fight. Sarah looks at the river. The rain glints, and she feels a new strength rising in all three of them. A flock of seagulls soars over the Willamette River. Their cries echo, blending with the sound of waves lapping against the wooden dock, like a call to action. James Carter sits in his office in the wooden house. The light from the computer screen illuminates his tense face. Before him is an old medical file. Its ink-stained pages tell of Dr. Daniel Hargrove's horrific mistake. Sarah Miller stands by the window, looking out at Ethan drawing on the dock. His blue crayon curves like the river. She turns back, her voice resolute. "We have to do something, James. Not just for Ethan, but for the other children." James nods. His eyes burn with determination. After uncovering the truth about the sedative that harmed Ethan, James and Sarah don't hesitate. James contacts a lawyer in Portland, Ellen Harper, renowned for medical lawsuits. They meet in a small riverside cafe. The scent of waffles and coffee mingles with the autumn air. Ellen, with silver hair and sharp eyes, flips through the file. Her brow furrows as she reads about Hargrove. "This is a serious case," she says, her voice low. "But we need more evidence not just from Ethan, but from other families." James clenches his fists, feeling as if he's facing a mountain. Sarah, sitting beside him, adds, "We found another family's name in the file. They're in Portland too." Sarah and James begin their quest for evidence. They reach out to the Martinez family, who also worked with Hargrove. Over the phone, Mrs. Maria Martinez speaks of her 10-year-old son, also neurologically damaged after using the sedative. Her voice trembles with pain. Sarah listens. Her heart tightens. She takes careful notes, sharing them with James. They decide to contact an investigative journalist in Portland, Clara Nguyen, who has written about medical scandals. Clara agrees to meet, promising to bring the story to light if they provide enough evidence. Meanwhile, the Willamette River remains a safe haven for Ethan. Sarah wheels him to the dock each day, bringing his sketch pad and colored pencils. Ethan keeps drawing. His pictures grow more detailed: blue rivers, golden suns, and sometimes gray lines, like storm clouds. One day, he points to a drawing and says, "Sky." Sarah smiles, placing a hand on his shoulder. "That's right, Ethan. Sky." James, standing nearby, jots the new word in a small notebook. His eyes light up. He knows the pursuit of justice must not interrupt Ethan's progress. James and Sarah work tirelessly. They dig through old documents, searching for more on Hargrove. Sarah discovers an online forum where parents share negative experiences with the doctor. She sends messages, connecting with 3 other families. All have children affected by the sedative. James, with organizational skills from his days running a company, arranges virtual meetings, gathering testimonies. Clara Nguyen, the journalist, joins one session, recording the heartbreaking stories. "We could shake the whole system," she says. Her eyes gleam. James feels a spark of hope but also worry, will justice come in time for Ethan? By the river, Ethan keeps drawing, untouched by the storm James and Sarah face. Sarah brings a small speaker, playing the sound of flowing water to keep Ethan calm. He begins to hum, soft but clear sounds, as if singing with the river. James, despite being busy with files and calls, makes time to sit with his son. He reads books, tells stories of ships on the Columbia River, and laughs when Ethan draws a small boat. "You'll be a captain one day," he says. His voice is warm. Sarah watches them, feeling the wooden house becoming a place of hope, not just pain. The pursuit of justice has just begun, but James and Sarah know they cannot stop. The Willamette, with its ceaseless flow, seems to remind them, truth, like water, always finds its way to the light. Ethan, with his drawings and new words, is their guiding flame. Sarah looks at the boy, then at James, and feels a new strength binding the three of them. The sun sets behind the Willamette, painting Portland's sky a faint pink, but dark clouds are gathering, signaling a storm. James Carter sits in his office. The computer's blue light illuminates his tense face. On the desk are stacks of legal documents, emails from lawyer Ellen Harper, and notes from journalist Clara Nguyen. The lawsuit against Dr. Daniel Hargrove is moving forward, but each step brings heavy pressure. A new message from Ellen makes James pause. Hargrove has hired a renowned legal team to dismiss the claims. James clenches his fists, feeling as if the river outside is flowing backward, pushing him into an unrelenting battle. Sarah Miller stands by the dock, wheeling Ethan close to the water's edge. The gentle lapping blends with the tinkling of wind chimes. She places a sketch pad before him, along with a small speaker playing ocean waves. Ethan, 7 years old, picks up a blue crayon, drawing long waves, then suddenly says, "Wave." Sarah smiles, lightly touching his shoulder. "That's right, Ethan. Wave." She gazes at the Willamette, feeling Ethan's daily progress, but she also knows James is caught in a different whirlwind. Sarah understands they must keep Ethan at the center. Despite the approaching storms, James feels the weight of pressure. Calls from the lawyer and journalist come constantly, demanding more evidence, more testimonies. The Martinez family and 2 others agree to testify, but Hargrove counters, accusing them of slander. A small online article, spread by Hargrove's ally, calls James a tech millionaire seeking personal revenge. James reads it, slamming his hand on the table. His voice shakes. "They can't do this to Ethan." Sarah steps into the room, placing a hot cup of tea before him. "We're doing the right thing," she says. Her voice is gentle but firm. Hargrove fears the truth. Sarah becomes the anchor for both James and Ethan. By the river, she continues encouraging Ethan to draw and speak. She brings picture books about oceans, forests, and skies. Ethan starts drawing more complex images. A small ship, a bird flying by and says a new word. Wing. Sarah notes each word, each drawing, sharing them with James to show Ethan's progress. One day, she floats a paper boat on the water. Ethan laughs, a small but clear sound. Sarah watches him, feeling the river sings with them, shielding them from the legal storm outside. James, though exhausted, doesn't give up. He meets Ellen Harper at her law office. She outlines the plan. They need more records from Hargrove's old hospital. James contacts a former nurse who reveals that patient files were altered to hide mistakes. This information is a ray of light, but also heightens the risk. Clara Nguyen warns that Hargrove could countersue if they're not careful. James feels like he's walking on thin ice, but seeing Ethan's drawings on the living room wall, rivers, suns, and bird wings, gives him strength to continue. The Willamette's banks remain a sanctuary. Sarah and Ethan spend hours there, with water and sunlight as companions. James joins more often, even if just for minutes between calls. He sits by Ethan, sharing stories of days he and Ethan's mother walked hand in hand by the river. Once, when Ethan draws an orange line, James laughs. "Is that a sunset? Looks like a Portland evening." Ethan doesn't respond, but his eyes sparkle, as if catching his father's humor. Sarah watches, feeling the wooden house no longer holds pain but is a place of hope and unity. The lawsuit's pressure keeps rising, but Sarah and James learn to balance. Sarah keeps Ethan in the river's safe space, where he can draw and speak in his own way. James, caught in legal battles, finds peace watching his son. The Willamette, with its ceaseless flow, seems to whisper that truth, like water, will always find its way. Ethan, with his new words and drawings, is the light guiding them through the storm. All right, dear audience, if you're watching and find this story compelling, please comment the number 1 or write, "I'm still here to keep listening." A cold wind sweeps across the Willamette, sending red maple leaves spinning on the water's surface, like scattered memories before a storm. James Carter stands before the Portland courthouse. His gray suit is crisp, but his eyes are tense. Today is the first hearing against Dr. Daniel Hargrove, who prescribed dangerous sedatives to Ethan and other children. James clenches his fists, feeling the river within him surging, ready to sweep everything away. Inside, lawyer Ellen Harper prepares documents. Her eyes are sharp as a blade. Sarah Miller, at home, wheels Ethan to the dock. The water's gentle flow is his only solace. In the courtroom, the air is heavy. Hargrove sits at the defendant's table. His face is calm, but his eyes avoid contact. James, in the front row, listens as Ellen presents evidence: Ethan's medical records, the Martinez family's testimony, and documents from a former nurse about altered files. Journalist Clara Newen, present in the room, takes rapid notes. Her eyes light up as Ellen shows a report on neurological damage from the sedative. But Hargrove's legal team strikes back, calling the evidence baseless, and James, a father obsessed with loss. James grips his chair, struggling to contain his anger. Sarah, at home, keeps Ethan calm. She places a sketchpad before him, with a small speaker playing wave sounds. Ethan, 7 years old, draws a new picture: a blue ship on the river, with a bright yellow patch like the Sunday. When he points to it and says, "Big ship," Sarah smiles, noting the new word in her book. "That's right, Ethan, big ship." She looks at the Willamette, sunlight glinting, and feels Ethan moving forward, despite the legal storm surrounding his father. Sarah knows James needs to know Ethan is okay, so she snaps a photo of the drawing and sends it to him, with the message, "Ethan's telling a story." James gets the message during the hearing. As Hargrove's lawyers question a witness, he opens his phone, sees Ethan's drawing, and tears well up. He texts back, "Thank you, Sarah." The drawing is a small flame, burning brightly, helping him through the tense moments. When the court recesses, Ellen pulls James aside. Her voice is low. "They're playing dirty. We need a stronger witness." James nods. His eyes are resolute. He thinks of Ethan's drawings, rivers, suns, ships, and knows he must fight, not just for his son, but for all the harmed children. Sarah continues her work by the river. She brings more picture books about ships and oceans, encouraging Ethan to draw and speak. He starts humming a small tune, as if singing with the water. One day, as she floats a paper boat on the river, Ethan points and says, "Fly." Sarah laughs. "Close, Ethan, it floats." She notes the moment, feeling he's building his own language, connecting to the world through colors and sounds. Sarah hangs the big ship, drawing on the living room wall, beside others, turning the wooden house into a gallery of hope. James returns home after the hearing, exhausted but unbroken. He sits by Ethan on the dock, watching him draw. "You're doing great," he says. His voice is warm. Ethan doesn't respond, but his eyes shine when James touches the drawing. Sarah shares the new word, "big ship," and Ethan's laugh. James smiles, feeling relief for the first time that day. He tells Sarah about the hearing, how Hargrove tries to hide the truth. "But I won't give up," he says, looking at the river. Sarah nods. "We won't give up." The Willamette's banks remain a refuge, where Ethan finds his voice, and James finds strength. Though the trial is challenging, James and Sarah know they're on the right path. Ethan, with his drawings and new words, is their guiding flame. The river, with its ceaseless flow, seems to whisper, "Truth will prevail," like water finding its way to the sea. A red maple leaf falls onto the Willamette, spinning on the surface before being swept into the current, like a sign of sudden change. James Carter sits in the Portland courtroom, His eyes, tense but unwavering, stay on lawyer Ellen Harper. The trial against Dr. Daniel Hargrove enters its third day. The air is heavy as the gray clouds outside. Suddenly, the courtroom door opens. A woman steps in. Linda Hayes, Hargrove's former assistant. Ellen turns, her eyes gleaming. She's our witness. James feels his heart pound, as if the river is calling for a turning point. Linda, with neatly tied hair and a trembling voice, stands at the witness stand. She reveals that Hargrove forced her to alter patient records to hide high-dose sedative use. "I couldn't live with the guilt anymore," she says. Her eyes are red. She presents a USB with original emails and documents, proving Hargrove knew the dangerous side effects but prescribed the drug to Ethan and others. Hargrove's legal team objects fiercely, but the judge orders the evidence reviewed. James grips his chair. A ray of light breaks through the darkness. At home, Sarah Miller wheels Ethan to the dock. The Willamette flows gently under pale sunlight. She places a sketch pad before him, with a small speaker playing water sounds. Ethan, 7 years old, picks up an orange crayon, draws a large circle, and says, "Big Sunday." Sarah smiles, noting the new word in her book. "That's right, Ethan. Big Sunday." She looks at the river, feeling Ethan's world expanding, word by word, stroke by stroke. Sarah snaps a photo of the drawing and sends it to James with the message, "Ethan's shining." She knows he needs these moments to weather the storm at court. James gets the message during the trial, as Linda is questioned. He opens his phone, sees Ethan's drawing a bright orange sun over a blue river and smiles, for the first time that day. The drawing is a small flame, reminding him Ethan is why he fights. Ellen, beside him, whispers, "Linda's the key. She could change everything." James nods. His eyes are resolute. He recalls days when Ethan sat silently. Now, he's drawing, speaking. The truth about Hargrove isn't just justice, it's protecting Ethan's future. Sarah continues, encouraging Ethan by the river. She brings picture books about nature, with images of mountains and seas. Ethan draws a green mountain, then says, "Hi." Sarah laughs. "It sure is high, Ethan." She hangs the drawing on the living room wall, beside others, rivers, suns, ships. The wooden house, once silent like a museum, now brims with color and hope. Sarah feels Ethan isn't just communicating, he's telling a story, and she's helping him write it. When James returns home after the trial, he's exhausted but relieved. He sits by Ethan on the dock, watching him draw. "You make me proud," he says. His voice is warm. Ethan doesn't respond, but his eyes shine when James touches the big sun drawing. Sarah shares Ethan's new word, and James laughs. "He'll tell a whole story soon, won't he?" Sarah nods, feeling their bond deepen. He tells her about Linda, the USB evidence, and the hope that Hargrove will pay. The Willamette's banks remain a sanctuary, where Ethan finds his voice, and James finds strength. Linda Hayes, with unexpected courage, has given them an edge. Journalist Clara Nguyen, at the trial, writes a new article, calling Ethan's story a light through medical darkness. James and Sarah know the trial isn't over, but they feel the river flowing with them, guiding them to truth. Ethan, with his drawings and new words, is their guiding flame. The Willamette, with its ceaseless sound, seems to whisper, "Justice is near." The sun rises over the Willamette. Golden light shines through red maple leaves, like a promise of a new dawn. James Carter stands outside the Portland courthouse. His hands are clenched, his breath unsteady as the judge prepares to deliver the verdict. After weeks of tension, today will decide Dr. Daniel Hargrove's fate. Sarah Miller, at home, wheels Ethan to the dock. The water's gentle flow blends with birdsong. She places a sketch pad before him, but today, Ethan picks up blue and red crayons, drawing a small figure by the river. Sarah holds her breath, feeling this isn't just a drawing, it's a new story. In the courtroom, the air is still as held breath. The judge, with a calm, clear voice, declares, Daniel Hargrove is guilty of medical malpractice, causing severe harm to multiple patients, including Ethan Carter. Hargrove is convicted, stripped of his medical license, and faces civil damages. James, in the front row, sheds silent tears. Lawyer Ellen Harper places a hand on his shoulder, whispering, "We did it." Journalist Clara Nguyen, in the corner, scribbles quickly, preparing her final article. Justice for the light by the river. James feels a burden lift, as if the Willamette has washed away the darkness in his heart. At home, Sarah gets James's message. We won. She smiles, turning to Ethan, who's drawing the figure by the river. Your dad's coming home, she says. Her voice is gentle. Ethan doesn't respond, but his eyes shine, and he says, person. Sarah is stunned, noting the new word. Ethan's drawing, with the small figure by the river, now has a yellow patch like a Sunday Sarah. Feels he's telling a story of family, of the connection she and James have helped him rediscover. She snaps a photo of the drawing, sending it to James with the message, Ethan's drawing his world. James leaves the courthouse, driving home, his mind filled with Ethan's drawing. He stops by the river, stepping onto the dock where Sarah and Ethan sit. He kneels by the wheelchair, looking at the drawing. Did you draw me? He asks. His voice chokes. Ethan points to the figure, then says, Dad. James hugs the wheelchair. Tears fall, but this time, they're joyful. Sarah stands nearby, smiling, feeling the wooden house is no longer a place of pain but of healing. You did it, she says. Her voice is warm. James shakes his head. We did it. Sarah keeps encouraging Ethan. She brings more crayons and picture books, letting him draw and speak his way. Ethan starts drawing more complex images, a family of 3, a house by the river, birds in the sky. Each new word, house, bird, tree, is a precious gem. Sarah hangs the drawings on the walls, turning the living room into Ethan's gallery. She realizes he's not just communicating, he's building a world, with the river at its heart and family as its light. James, after the verdict, feels relieved but reflective. Justice is served, but he knows Ethan's journey continues. He spends more time by the river, telling stories of boating on the Columbia or sunsets he watched with Ethan's mother. One day, as Ethan draws a red bird, James laughs. That bird looks like Portland in autumn. Ethan doesn't respond, but his eyes shine, as if laughing with his father. James feels a deep connection, not just with Ethan, but with Sarah, who brought hope back. The Willamette's banks are a place of healing. The court's verdict not only brought justice but freed James from guilt. Ethan, with his drawings and new words, is finding his way out of silence. Sarah, with quiet patience, is their bridge. The river, with its ceaseless flow, seems to sing a song of hope, reminding them that light always finds a path, no matter how thick the darkness. The Willamette flows gently under the sunset. Golden orange light reflects like a promise of new days. The wooden house, once a prison of pain, now brims with Ethan's drawings, blue rivers, radiant suns, and a small family standing together. James Carter, once trapped by guilt and loss, has found light through the pursuit of justice and love for his son. Sarah Miller, with quiet patience, has become the guiding breeze, helping Ethan tell his story through each stroke, each word. The river is not just where Ethan finds his voice, it's where the 3 find each other, healing wounds that seemed impossible to mend. This story teaches us that light exists, even in the darkest corners. Like the Willamette, truth and love always find their way, no matter the obstacles. Ethan, with his drawings and new words, reminds us that every step forward, however small, is a miracle. James and Sarah, through their pursuit of justice, show that courage and persistence can change not just one life, but a community. But the story doesn't end here. Will Ethan draw more pictures telling of the future? Will James and Sarah continue their healing journey by the river? We want to hear your thoughts. What do you think of Ethan, James, and Sarah's journey? Leave a comment. Let us know where you're watching from, what time it is, and if you'd like to see the next part of this story. We're thrilled to have you with us. Share this with your loved ones in the U.S. Subscribe to the channel to not miss the emotional moments by the Willamette. Together, we'll continue this story of light and hope.